Well, hi, YouTubers. Hi, I'm back with 24 books of 2024, and this book have tissues. This book have tissues. Honestly, this book, as a dog owner, as someone who's lost their dogs, as someone who loves dogs, this struck me to my very little doggy loving core. Okay, I mean, some really joke. Okay, that people do my head in, but dogs, oh yeah, give me a puppy. I'm a happy person. Okay, or an older dog. Older dogs need dignity too and love. Okay, seriously, don't buy a puppy. Okay, they're cute. Go for an older dog. Get an older dog from the shelter. Okay, get that dog the last few years of some dignity. Okay, okay. Let me start with the blurb. Okay, Arthur, the dog who crossed the jungle to find a home, by Mikael Lindnord. Okay, the heartwarming true story of the rescue dog who never gave up. When you are racing 435 miles through the jungle and mountains of South America, the last thing you need is a stray dog tagging along. That's exactly what happened to Mikael Lindnord, captain of a Swedish adventure racing team, when he flew a scruffy but dignified mongrel meatball one evening. When they left the next day, the dog followed him. Try as they might, they couldn't lose him, and soon Mikael realised he didn't want to. Crossing rivers, battling illness and injury, they struggled through some of the most toughest terrain on the planet. The team and the dog walked together to the finish line, when Mikael decided he would save Arthur and bring him back to his family in Sweden, whatever it took. Right. So it even starts off, it starts with the present tense, starts off in 2015, which is part of this upload now is 9 years ago. And it's talk about how Arthur is just a part of the family. Arthur is just there. Arthur. I only have to move them a couple of inches and they'll be cozy and safe between a familiar furry body. My feet aren't remotely cold. Arthur sleepy lays under the desk, adjusting his front left paw so it's a perfect, comfortable, Arthurish position. If I shut my eyes now, at any time I can see him in his favourite position, his long body panting gently, his big lion-like head pointing toward me expectantly, and one of his front paws tucked under him, as he was saving it for later. Right. And he's talking about his wife, his 2-year-old daughter Philippa, Helena, his wife, his 3-month-old son 4, and it's just, this is a year after Arthur came into their lives, and talks a lot about Mikael's life. And you kind of understand how Mikael has the mentality that he has even to save Arthur. Now, he wanted to be a professional ice skater. He lives in Sweden. It's like the national sport. But he, professional hockey player, sorry. So, but he wasn't good enough to make the grade. So, in a way, it left him with a fear of failure. That's the thing, right? He has a fear of failure. Mikael Lindnord has a fear of failure, okay? And it's flashing back to his life, okay? Throughout my childhood, I was told that I was weak, and my father's reputation of me went high. Remember as if it was yesterday, telling me that he didn't think I could make it. Maybe it was because being in the military himself, he's seen so many boys like me broken by the tough, hard work that you had to do. Maybe his idea I was weak was something to do with his hatred, my hatred of confrontation, which I do hate. I felt really bad after any confrontation for a long time. But actually weak? Rather, I felt I had something to prove, not to myself, but to him and everyone else. That's the thing. He has a fear of failure. His mentality comes from all his life told he was weak. He didn't make the grade for ice hockey. He didn't make the grade for a lot of things. He wasn't a natural student or academic. He admits that. So his fear of failure during his national service is also talks about his love of adventure racing. Okay, now adventure racing is extreme. One thing I like Mikael, he goes to extremes. He lives his life to extremes in a way that I think he has to prove to himself. Okay, he has to prove himself that he's the best. If not the best, he's gonna do his best shot. Right. Okay. As an adventure racer, you were doing things like running, cycling, or kayaking in teams non-stop over a period of days, which I reckon makes adventure racing the ultimate test of mind and body. The basic principles are relatively simple, but logically complicated. Your team, normally made up of 3 men and 1 woman, has to get from A to B, and B can be hundreds of kilometres from A, by bike, on foot, in kayak, sometimes abseiling, sometimes rock climbing or swimming. The clock starts on day 1, doesn't stop until you fall over on the wayside or cross the finish line, come over a week later. So yeah, that's his thing. That's his thing. Okay, he's part of a team. Okay, this Swedish racing team, and he's going. It's in Ecuador on his journey. Okay, now I wrote down their names. Okay, he's with Stefan and Simon, Mikael. Okay, And a woman called Christian, she's filming it. She's there to film it, document their journey. Okay, so it was actually her photographs which helped kind of launch Arthur into the stratosphere because she captured their first moment on camera. Right. So they're at the TA, they're at a stop, they are just battered, they're bruised, they're in Ecuador, they're crossing the jungle, they are stressed, they are tired, they are sore. You can imagine how battered and they're feeling. I mean, you're crossing jungle, okay? You're crossing terrain, okay, you don't even know. They have guys and people system along the way, of course, and like and spotters and other teams too. But that mentality, getting in ahead, I mean, you're in humid conditions that you don't know, which could actually kill you. And then Arthur. He meets Arthur and his life changes in such an incredible, wonderful way. Oh, it is. It was a muddy, battered looking dog. He was standing perfectly still by a red bike box, seemed to be waiting for something. People were milling around him, but he looked completely unperturbed by all the activity just inches away from him. I saw stray dogs in Ecuador, but he'd never taken much notice of them. Most of them were sad looking creatures with injured limbs, legs, and missing ears. They would yap and bite and jump about, or they'd howl or just collapse in a heap asleep. But I never seen a dog with so much presence and stillness. Right, yep. So much presence, so much stillness. And this is the moment. I opened the pack of meatballs. They were now warm and looking meaty and good. I put a spoon into the mass, got up and moved towards the dog. He carried on looking at me as I approached, neither coming nearer nor moving away, just looking at me. I got a little bit nearer and bent down and put a spoonful of the meatball on the ground in front of him. I sighed that one wasn't enough and added another to the pile of meat in front of the dog. There you go. Finally he stopped looking at me and bended his big head down to the ground. He wolfed a lot in almost one go. "You're hungry, my friend," I said to him under my breath. "Hungry, my friend." Right. So when they start moving, Arthur starts following them. They also realise that Arthur knows the terrain better than they ever will. So they start to follow him too. He knows ways that they don't know. But by being there, they're losing time. They're losing valuable time. Right. But they start feeding him. They start treating him right. As he's there. And the thing is, it's like caring for him because when he stops, he's clearly exhausted. But the fact of all this, the dog kept up with us. I had now got completely used to his presence by my side, despite the moments of running off. This battered, much-battered creature who mostly kept pace with my every stride. I told myself it'd be better if he went home, but when he lagged behind, I knew I subconsciously slowed down to wait for him. I slowed down to wait for him, and started to think of him as a friend. He becomes their mascot. He becomes theirs. And they call him Arthur, okay? So I call him Arthur because I also thought about the way he carried himself. His pondus, that Swedish word that conveys so much and which defines his stillness and elegance. He is, like a king, a golden king, like the film, like King Arthur. This dog was no ordinary dog. He was regal. He was Arthur. Okay, so they decided to call him Arthur because it's kingly, it's regal, it's special. It's him. The name of him is theirs. That's it. Oh, God. So, and when they are going on a kayak, okay, well, they say, okay, well, Arthur, you can't bring the dog. The TA, the guy in charge, okay, the next step, if you will, say that you can't bring the dog, okay. Well, Mikael's attitude is, well, hold on. He's not the dog. He's Arthur. He needs me. I'm his only hope. Another part of me looked around and sent expressions on everyone's faces. It was crazy to say mad to be thinking about a stray dog when there's so much time at stake at us. So much at stake for us. We were heading for at least 14 hours of kayaking, often through difficult waters. Some had only just recovered from severe dehydration. We would need our resources to put ourselves through this next stage. But Arthur jumps in. Okay, and Arthur jumps into the water with them, and that's it. And Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention Karen. Sorry. Stefan, Simon, and Karen. My apologies. I forgot to mention Karen. Okay, she's also on the journey. So Arthur follows them, jumps into the water and follows them. Won't leave them. Okay, and the winners of this, because actually they came 12th. Okay, they came 12th. Okay, the winners were Team Sagat, the New Zealanders, led by Nathan Favre, okay, who was seen bouncing around the mountain with his children during the pre-race accommodation period. He being so used to the altitude, his team had done no harm. Sorry, has done his team no harm. They're a good team. They're usually in the top three, even at sea level. Our score was 146 hours and 12th place. Okay, not great. We've made navigation mistakes. We had penalties. We haven't made the progress we should have done on the early stage. By the time we got to the TA where we met Arthur, we lost 6 hours more than we should have done. And for the first time in his life, okay, Mikael doesn't mind. Normally he'd be going over every single thing in this, every single mistake, every single little issue, but he doesn't. Because he's got Arthur. He's going to bring Arthur home. And by this time, news, thanks to the pictures that Christian took, Arthur's gone viral. Arthur has made the news. Everyone is now talking about Arthur. They've seen the pictures of this dog that followed this dog from Ecuador that followed this team. And media attention is grown. I actually remember the actual information about this. I read this on the news. So they're going to bring Arthur home. They're determined, and interesting because they get so much support, but also so much they hit the bureaucratic red tape from bringing a dog from a non-EU country to Sweden, which is okay. You go. Okay. Right. The only seen one place that looked after dogs nearly arrived in the country, Scandipet. It was quite near Stockholm, run by a woman called Debbie. My name is Mikael, I said. I'm calling about a dog called Arthur. The word sounded simple, sounded strange to me. I was holding my breath, literally forgetting to breathe. I felt a bit sick again. I was aware that if Debbie couldn't help, I had no fallback plan. Arthur, she said, that stray dog in Ecuador who's been on the news? I breathed out, yes, that Arthur. They said you can help. I'm bringing him to Sweden. That is, I'm trying to bring him to Sweden. The Agri Board, okay, that's Swedish board, agricultural board, said he needs to go into quarantine as soon as he gets to Stockholm, and the flight is on Wednesday. Okay, well that's so soon. I'm sure people will help you. You need to get him microchipped and vaccinated and signed off. As you know, it has to be here. He has to be here for 4 months. Right. We only just met and had to say goodbye for 4 months. And how much does it cost? I said, already dreading the question. And at 10,000 krona a month, depending on vet's bills. And then I felt sick again. It was such a huge amount, the equivalent of about £4,000. But look, I'll be honoured to help you. Just give what you can. Right. So, no, that I said that's very kind, but you must have what you're owed. Somehow we'll do it, and we will. Right. £4,000, 4 months for Arthur to being quarantined. And then the Swedish Agri said no. Okay? And so what Mikael does is his determination. He is not going to abandon Arthur. Okay? The quarantine said they're taking for 4 months. The Swedish Agri Board said no. So he turns on them. No, he turns on them. Okay, go fine. The media have got this interest. I'm going to use the media for me. I'm going to turn to the media and say, they won't let me bring him home. Forgetting that everyone loves a dog story. Everyone loves a shaggy dog story. Everyone does. It's feel good. Okay? I got a signal on my phone again, because I'm the journalist, okay, at the Swedish newspaper. Okay, I can't pronounce them, sorry. I was speaking to you the previous day. Swedish Agri, I told them both, have both said no. I can't bring Arthur in, but I'm not giving up. I will do whatever it takes, but I'm not giving up. They said they'll run the story. They said they will help keep the pressure up. Right. And pressure was on. Well, Swedish Agri absolutely had to. They had to issue, in the end, Arthur a passport. Mongrel, 8. Place of birth, Ecuadorian jungle. Right. And of course, this is a media circus. This is an absolute media circus. And I remember this. Everyone wanted to see Arthur. It was Everyone wanted to touch him, everyone wanted to meet him. He was such an important dog. It meant so much to so many people. Just the bravery of this dog, this stray dog in Ecuadorian jungle, following this man who gave him a meatball. Okay, meat was Arthur just following him because he wanted food? Hey, most likely. But Arthur was doing it maybe because he saw something in Mikael. Okay, they need each other. That was the thing. They absolutely need each other. Right. And right, this will turn out to be Sweden's biggest news story in ages. Apparently, they were going to broadcast arrival of Stockholm Airport live, the kind of thing they'll normally do for a state visit, a movie star, or return of a win hockey team. Right, we'd have our hair brushed and our teeth cleaned because it would over the media. But all thought about it, the more unbelievable it all was. But as long as we get Arthur safely into the country, into Debbie's hands, it would all work out fine. Right, I knew from the first time I heard Debbie speak that Arthur would be safe with her. It was gut feeling, and I always trusted my gut. Okay. And it also does talk, right, about the media backlash. I mean, the actual winner of the event, the New Zealand team, were probably a little bit upset that all their focus from their win was taken off it because of a stray dog. I mean, of course, okay? And of course, when there's media hype, there's also media backlash, and it does cover that. And one thing is this was Ecuador, because one thing this did do was kind of bring attention to the plight of the stray dogs in Ecuador, and in a way, I don't think the Ecuadorians like that too much. So there was media backlash, and said they're only doing it for the money, for the hype. That Mikael was only in it for himself. Reading this book, I felt no indication that Mikael was doing it for himself. Okay, Mikael was doing it for the stray dogs of Ecuador. He's doing it for Arthur. So I got no impression reading this book of Mikael Lind being that kind of man. Okay, right. Here you go. This bit here, though. Okay, this thing. Once a story got hold, the so-called once a story of the so-called claimants got spread over the internet, there was a terrible backlash. Okay, which kind of imitation to get the man who said Arthur belonged to him prosecuted for cruelty to animals. Thousands of people were silent. Some of them said pretty nasty things. Okay, so what happened is, well, apparently, right, Arthur's original owner, okay, if he was his original owner, said Arthur's my dog, I want him back. Well, when Arthur was found, he was in such a bad way. He would only a few months to live anyway. So people turned on this commenter to say Arthur's my dog. I said, why is your dog in this state? And then started going after him. You really should have thought about that a bit more. Okay, so yeah, okay. So it doesn't matter, okay, what Arthur belonged to in the first place, okay? He belongs to the Lindnord family now. So Lindnord family, my apologies. Okay. And whilst he's there, of course, this is a fortune. They have to fly and visit Arthur, put a strain on their finances, but it's all for a good cause. And when it comes to he needs surgery, he needs his teeth done. And I liked how Sweden really kind of also come together for Arthur as well to make sure he got a good home. This actually amused me, okay? Right. The only one surgeon who could do the complicated thing for Arthur's teeth that needed doing. He was Danish world famous and such rare demand. He was the only dental vet who had given a leopard a gold crown. Right, he was flying in from Stockholm especially to operate on Arthur. He was a lucky dog as well as a gold-plated one. He was the most gold-plated dog in Sweden. So they introduce Arthur to the family. He gets on very, very well. He starts to convertise to Sweden. Arthur's a dog, okay, that likes long walks, but he's loved. He was taken home to his family. Loved. And it's interesting too because one minute he's dining like a scrap dog, eating scraps, and then okay he wants frying chicken because he's acclimatized to that now. This wonderful, wonderful dog. The way Mikael describes Arthur, his shiny coat, his glossy fur, is just so lovely. And yeah, we decided he was generally behaving a lot like a normal Swedish family dog, a bit puppy-like sometimes, a bit disobedient others. In fact, despite the sit train, there's only one instruction you could actually rely on him to obey. It involved having your running shoes on and standing by the front door and saying, let's go. You can be sure that Arthur will be up and after you almost instantly. Alright. So this is when, okay, their second child was born, of a toddler called Philippa. So this is a story, okay, about endurance test. It also talked about Mikael going back as well and doing the endurance race that he loves so much. So that's, but also a man, okay, who loves an adventure, but also loves his life too. So in a way, because even though, okay, he was a married man and he had a daughter, Philippa, married to Helena, who was his, like, they met when they were quite young. Dogs change you in a way as well, okay? They kind of, because you have to take care of them. They rely on you. They're they're absolutely wonderful. Okay, and Arthur, I will say this: Arthur actually passed away in 2020. He had a tumor, and he passed away in 2020. His life wasn't long. He was with the family for only a few years, but what the Lindnord family did is give those last years dignity. Okay, he was around 8 when he was found, and his final years were full of dignity. Of a man who would not give up, a man who actually, in a way, has a fear of failure. Feeling that way when he was young, when he didn't make the ice hockey team. He hated that fear of failure, which is why he would not fail Arthur. But the thing is, it also changes him in a way because when he came 12th in that endurance race, before he would have been hyper focused on what went wrong, but he got Arthur, and it didn't matter to him as much. So in a way, you can see this man's maturity. And the thing is, Mikael Lindnord is not a journalist. I mean, there's things like Marley and Me, which are written by journalists. So, but he's not a journalist. He's just telling the story. And just the way he describes Sweden, the way he describes his family is just so heartwarming. And I loved it. No, I absolutely love this book. I cried reading this book. Arthur, the Dog Who Crossed the Jungle to Find a Home by Mikael Lindnord. Thanks for writing this. Thank you. I'm signing off here. Bye now.